Hello and welcome to another episode of the DTF podcast here on the Fearless Media Network. My name is Rob Doster. I have John Fanta here with me, and I have ESPN ACC Network social media superstar Terrence Oglesby, the man, the myth, the legend. He is here with us as well. We're going to be here for about an hour talking about all things college basketball. I want to dive into something fun that I haven't done in probably 4 or 5 years. It is the Why Your Team Sucks podcast. And everybody loves talking about how great the best teams in college basketball are and how they're going to win national championships. And so we are here to tell you why your favorite team, why the best teams in college basketball are not going to win. Just going to poke some holes in all of these great college basketball teams that you see in the sport right now. Before we get started, Fanta, on Monday, when we scheduled this podcast on a Thursday morning, the very first response you had was, make sure we can talk about Michigan State and Maryland. You said this on Monday. Michigan State and Maryland had one of the craziest endings that we've had in college basketball this season. Trey Holloman hits a 60-foot bomb to win the game at the buzzer in College Park and silence Scott Van Pelt and 16,000 other crazy Terrapin alums. How did you know that?
Hey, by the way, that's a lot of fun to do that.
Yes.
That's a lot of fun to do that. I've done it. It's awesome. It's so much fun.
Is it better? All right, Finn, you can go in a second, but is it better to make a shot that shuts everybody in the building up, or is it better to hit that shot where when it goes in front of your fans, it explodes and it's so loud you can't hear anything?
They're both equally awesome, but shutting up Maryland to go to the tournament was incredible. And getting Van Pelt to come take a picture with me on the floor after the game, not knowing he was a Maryland fanatic at the time, even better. Chef's kiss. I still haven't gotten a hold of that freaking picture. And I love Scott Van Pelt. Huge fan. Been a fan since I was like 10. He's awesome. Never got the picture.
That's awesome.
So this is why this podcast is so fun, because we can just stem on. So first things first, I love that Scott Van Pelt is courtside at Maryland games because as the guy who hosts what I think is the best sports news show on the planet in his edition of Sports Center, and perhaps the best show on ESPN. I mean, I think it's incredible how good he is, and Scott, you're a role model. Really,
he is.
How you do your job. I think it's great because we're all fans, and he should be allowed to be a fan of his alma mater, just like T.O. should be, just like you should be, Rob, just like I am. You know, we have a job to do so when we're objectively talking about them, but you're allowed to go to the game as a fan. And it feels like in our world, everyone's like critical of certain things. I love that this is celebrated. It's great. What Trey Holloman did last night in Tom Izzo's 30th season has to make you think, is this destiny? Is it destiny that Michigan State is going to just be sitting in San Antonio? I don't know what happens from there because of Auburn and Duke, but they have to be one of the 10 to 12 teams, if you're going to break it down right now, that can make it there. Have to. Because they're 23-5. They're at the top of the Big Ten. Terrence Oglesby deserves all the flowers. He called this. He was right. And you know what, T.O.? The reason why and this is a great breaking off point with this team that we can talk about. The reason why I was doubtful was because I was unsure of how they were going to effectively score it.
Mm-hmm.
But what this team does is they compensate in every way to make up for sometimes a lack of offense and a lack of shooting. And what's ironic is that there's another veteran coach doing a very similar thing in New York City. Here you have in this culture of, is this guy retiring? Is this guy retiring? This guy retired. He said goodbye. So long. I don't want to deal with the sport anymore. Here you have Izzo, Pitino doing their things. But Izzo has, this is a top 5 coaching job by him ever. And it's coming in his 30th season. This team has, if you look at their talent, what he's done with this team is unbelievable.
T.O., are you allowed to say nice things about the Big Ten?
I've said nice things about the Big Ten this year. The Big Ten this year is a lot of fun. Oh, they're not all trying to adapt to Zach Edey anymore. The conference changer that was Zach Edey. Everybody was trying to play a certain way because he was there. No longer the case. They're fun, they're fast, they defend, they're freaking tough. That's for sure. And then, like, there's arguments to be made about continuity in today's game. I'm telling you, it's do you have the right amount of continuity? And even St. John's, RJ Lewis, they have guys that are returning there at St. John's. Ejiofor was there last year. Like, you have to have that nice blend of just enough returnees. Or in a new day when a coach changes, can he bring 2 or 3 guys with him to kind of simplify the process for some of the new guys? Guys knows what to expect with these things. So I think that's a huge portion of it. I'm telling you, Michigan State, those dudes are tough. They still can't throw it in the ocean, but they find ways to win. They hit 4 threes, and one of them was beyond half court.
Yeah.
They almost shoot it better from there than they do. Like, just start hurling them from half and then just go get them.
Hey, they probably couldn't shoot it any worse from back there. I'll say this about Michigan State. The thing that I think is so impressive is they went through that blip, right? You lose 2 on the road on the West Coast, which is something that could happen. And then you kind of shit the bed a little bit against Indiana and at home in a game that you probably shouldn't be losing. And a lot of people had questions about them. I had questions about them. They've lost 3 out of 4. They're no longer in first place in the Big Ten. And the next 4 games that they have after the loss to Indiana, at Illinois, Purdue at home, at Michigan, at Maryland. I don't know if you could find a tougher 4 game. And by the way, they have Wisconsin on Sunday. I don't know if you could find a more difficult 5-game stretch in the Big Ten anywhere for any team. And they've won 4 in a row, 3 of them on the road against the top half of the conference with Wisconsin coming up. It's so impressive. I love, more than anything, I love the story of Jace Richardson and kind of his emergence. You know, we talked with Izzo last night about this, and you know, it would be very easy for a freshman to see like what Kasparis Yakashonis is doing and what Cooper Flagg is doing and the minutes that Concanipple is playing and you know, the success that Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey are having, and get frustrated that I'm doing air quotes here, only playing like 20 minutes a game, 20 minutes a game. And that didn't really happen with Jace. And he kept, he kept a positive attitude. He kept showing up for practice. He kept showing up for games. He kept playing the right way. And now he's getting his time to shine. He had 15 last night. He's had a couple of really, really impressive games in a row here. And I think that his presence, Fanta, more than anything else, is what makes – he's the game changer, right? He is the guy where
he gives them some offensive pop.
Yes. Yeah, where you can see like them, you can see like their issue is being able to consistently put up points without having to rely on offensive rebounds and getting stuff in transition. And he is the guy where you could just give it to him and get the hell out of the way, and you're probably going to get a pretty good look.
Well, they need it. They need it. And just imagine if Jaden Akins and Jeremy Fears can shoot the basketball a little bit better. Like they're winning these games on a night where Akins and Fears are shooting a combined 4 for 16. And Trey Holloman was 3 for 12. Like, if I had told you coming into the game that Holloman, Fears, and Akins would shoot 7 for 28, you probably would have said back to me, how much did Maryland win by? Doesn't matter, because Michigan State just takes away so much defensively. They guard you. If you watched that game last night, that was my takeaway. They were extended out on Jacoby Gillespie, T.O. They were extended out on Miguel and Rice. Derek Queen's a bit of a unicorn type talent with how he plays the game. Like, he's so different in how he stylistically plays it in a really good way. And I thought Michigan State met him with physicality. They did as good of a job as they could have, and they limited him. I mean, you haven't seen many teams hold Derek Queen to 2 of 11 and Gillespie 2 of 10. That's a really good Maryland offense, and Michigan State said, we're not going to let you hit threes. 4 of 20 from 3. If you take away Maryland's threes, they're just not the same team. And Michigan State, conversely, shot 4 for 15 from 3. Here's the biggest thing that stands out to me that's so old school and different. It's been a long time since I've seen a team this time of year, like February 27th, T.O., play 10 guys and have 10 different dudes score. One is in double figures, and like after him, nobody else, until the Holloman game-winning 3, nobody else has more than like 5 to 7 points. That, to me, is the unique thing. It's like they don't really know where their scoring is going to come from. They do now with Richardson. He's become their alpha. He has turned into that. So that emergence is really interesting. But I just think it's the epitome of an Izzo team. Defense, rebounding, they're good at getting runouts. And I'll tell you what, they did as nice of a job as we've seen against Queen and Gillespie. And that is a moment, Tio. What could that do for their confidence with the calendar turning to March when you can win a game that way?
When in the 50s, man, go ahead and suit up. That's Michigan State's wheelhouse. That is their wheelhouse. You play in the 50s and they don't have to worry about scoring all that much? Michigan State's wheelhouse. I do want to reference back to what Rob said about Jace Richardson. You guys, we talked about Bob. We talked with Bob Ritchie several times, who lives right down the road from me here in Greenville. And by the way, Furman 22-8, they're pretty good again. They're pretty good again. In the Southern Conference is really good again. 10-7 in league, 22-8 on the season. I digress. I talked to him about, what is it about some of these guys? He goes, well, if their parents played, they're much more willing to fall into the process. What's wrong? What's wrong?
I mean, the comment on YouTube, is this true?
What? I didn't see anything. I don't pay attention to the comments because you can get sidetracked there.
Do you have an ex who went to VCU?
No. I don't.
Okay, so Ellison, T.O. hates VCU. His ex-GF went there. She was one nasty SOB. Wow. So he refuses to talk A10 ball.
I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that. I did a VCU last VCU game last year. I don't know what this is.
Like Coach Odom?
Love Coach Odom. Great dude. Can't wait for him to be the next coach of Virginia. Enjoy him while you have him, VCU. Look, here's the deal.
God, you did not just say that.
I'm not breaking any news here. This is all me this is all just me putting the puzzle pieces together.
This is all just T.O.
I'm putting the puzzle pieces together. That's all I'm doing at night on my little board, putting the puzzle pieces together. That's all I'm doing. Ryan Odom to Virginia. Can I finish my point?
Yes, please.
Okay, so here we go. We're back to it. So it's he's talking about if the parents played. They're much more process-oriented players because they understand, hey, man, you're going to be in college for a little while. You're not going to get it all right away. Just keep showing up, keep showing up, keep showing up. And now we see Jace Richardson really stepping up. He's going to be a draft pick, really stepping up and being I'm not going to say the focal point of the offense because there's not really a focal point in that offense. It's more of an opportunistic deal at Michigan State, but he's picking spots and he's been successful. 15 points. He's the only guy in double figures in a game they won. I mean, kind of understanding hey, man, it takes time. It takes time. Love VCU, by the way. Have you guys been to a game there?
Yes, I have. One of the first games I ever called. It's an unbelievable place to go.
Unbelievable atmosphere. I did VCU Richmond last year when Toby Lawal. Holy smokes. What, Fanta? I don't have any ex-girlfriends down at VCU or up at VCU.
Okay. I have to be honest with you guys, and maybe it's an all-time podcast moment. I'm just going to leave it at this. I have one question on my mind because I haven't been paying attention to shit.
Yeah.
Who the hell is Mary Kate?
I will tell you, we're not having that conversation right now.
I don't know.
We are not having that. We are not having that conversation right now, Fanta. I will tell you off air.
I don't know.
I will tell you off air.
I don't know who that is. Okay. All right.
Well, we're not having that conversation.
I don't know who that is.
Man.
I don't know. You don't know either, Theo?
Speaking of Mary Kate, guys, let's get to the SEC because I just want to ask you real quick about Kentucky. They get back to full strength last night. Well, full strength. Lamont Butler fouls out, was not himself. Jaxson Robinson played 12 minutes in the first half and then did not play in the second half. T.O., I asked him and then McCall this last night. Does it make sense to bring those guys back if they are still playing through pain to be able to try to, I don't know, Kentucky's projected as a 3 or 4 seed. Does it make sense to bring them back if they're still playing through pain when you can give them maybe another week and get them to the point where you get to the SEC tournament or maybe even the NCAA tournament where you have a chance to win something. Right now, you're just winning games as opposed to being able to win something where you can hang a banner.
For Kentucky.
Is T.O. frozen?
Yeah, it might be. Are you there?
Yeah. Did Kentucky rush? Did Kentucky make the right decision rushing? I don't know if it was rushing, but bringing back Lamont, Butler, and Jaxson Robinson when it was pretty clear they weren't back to 100% last night in their win.
Guys, look, every win matters, especially right now going into the end of the season. Like you're playing for. Uh-oh.
Go ahead.
We're playing. You're playing for seeding at this point. Is seeding ever more important in the SEC right now? Is seeding ever more important than the NCAA tournament? Like right now is important. That win at Oklahoma, like I'm not saying it was a must win, but it may have been fallen into that category of like can't lose that one because I think Oklahoma, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I think they're the worst team in the SEC or right there close to it. So like. No, they're Oklahoma, LSU, South Carolina. I'm not saying it's like you can't lose that game, but at the same time, you want to win them. So, look, let's be honest. If Lamont's on the floor, they're just better teams. A 70% Lamont is better than a lot of point guards. And quite frankly, it's the best point guard they have on the roster. Was it wrong to force them to play? I don't think
it was a force.
Yeah, that's the thing. They didn't force him to play. Like
I think
the guy wants to play. Hey, we're in college. Like they're going to play. If they can play, they're going to play. And that's okay. By the way, NBA has that problem right now. They have a little boo-boo not playing. College, these kids want to play. Let them play. That's where I'm at with that. As you guys both look down at your phone and don't even listen to them.
I listen to everything.
No, I don't want to hear that shit. We're getting in a bad habit. We're getting in a bad habit.
I'm just checking the YouTube comments over here. That's all I'm doing.
No, it doesn't pop up on the side of the screen here.
Crazy.
I can hear and look at my phone. Yes, NBA has a
problem with
that. College does not. And
okay. No, it doesn't. And they should play. If you could play, be there for your team. You could play.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about Kentucky though. This is a game that a Cal team very well could have lost, and Mark Pope found a way to win it in a slot of the season where you really needed it. You needed a win like this. Otago stepped up.
We figured out who was calling T.O.'s phone.
Well, it was my phone that was ringing, but no, Kyle, I am not looking that up. Oh my goodness, these comments. Come on when we do these midday like Wednesday or Thursday shows, everyone seems to not be working. So which is fine because we're not either. So the thing is, like, I think T.O., you talked about emotions of a player. How about Otago away?
Man, so good. Well, he scored 21 of the last 23. Unbelievable.
28 points. This is why Kentucky's still dangerous in March, because they have multiple players who could go on a run like that in the game. They could take over a game, score it at a high rate. They did not shoot the three well, 7 for 23 in this game, and Oklahoma did shoot the basketball well, and Oklahoma was a desperate team. You know, if Oklahoma wins this game, the bubble pressure comes off them a little bit. It does, because you would have had back-to-back big wins. But instead, you're right. I mean, Lamont Butler is still a top 15 defensive player in the sport.
Yeah.
So without him, you're really at a loss on the perimeter. And they had to get a couple of stops late. I thought that they fought really hard to get this win. They had enough balanced scoring in 27 minutes. How about Brandon Garrison off the bench? Garrison
had a fight at the end of it too.
Right. Hey, Brandon Garrison stepped up for his team. And then, you know, I mean, I do think, Rob, like, I would say this. Kobe Brea, whether or not he is making shots, is going to affect Kentucky's March outcomes, because when he's making them and they're getting stops and the other players are falling in place, good things happen. Last night, he was trying to ignite. He never really got going. They need that. They need a healthy Butler. I mean, of course, they need a health, Robinson. These guys, just getting this win and getting these guys on the floor is a good step for Kentucky. They found a way in an SEC road game against a bubble team. I consider that a positive, and it's a confidence-boosting thing that this team could need heading into March.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the ending was fun too. You had the bucket from Owe, you had the block at the other end, you had teams getting in fights and layup lines, you had a beer getting thrown from the stand. Like, it was, I didn't realize Oklahoma fans were like that.
Oh yeah.
The fans were like that. What's going on over there, Phantom?
It's that time of year, guys. I mean, now this is the time of year where the phones are ringing.
Yes.
For a variety of things, either March stuff, coaches.
Speaking of coaching stuff, Fana, I know you have something to say about Craig Smith and the way that happened and the timing that happened there. So I'm going to give you say what you got to say your piece.
I think it was wrong of Utah to fire Craig Smith this much into the season for a team that has not been at the bottom of the Big 12. But let's face, they have notched some quality wins along the way. They had just recently beaten Kansas, who I know isn't having a particularly strong year, but this is a program that is 7-10, and they're right now in the standings. They're better than 6 teams in the standings if you look at the Big 12. And he gets fired. He's not allowed to finish out the season. He worked with this team in June, July, August, and September and October.
He can't finish 4 more games? It's crazy.
He worked with his players. You couldn't have waited. Oh, so you wanted to start a search. Go ahead and start one if you really want to. Because other ADs who are making coaching changes or think their coach is leaving have been doing searches since December.
Mm-hmm.
What made you compelled to make a coaching change earlier this week? The timing of it was a joke. And more than anything, if you're an AD or an administrator in that office, you owe it to the players that he recruited to have him finish out the season, finish what they started. Now, unless something else comes out, which I think Craig is a very good man, and I've heard there's been nothing that would indicate that there's anything that's beyond just performance here. Finish what you started. Your team showed up in June for workouts. If you're an administrator, if you're the person who made that decision, I just think it's really easy for people sometimes to judge and to say, this is what I want to do with this program. He's not cutting it. Okay? Well, here's what I would say back to that. What are you doing to make the program better? Is under the next head coach, is the program going to have NIL? Are they going to have the resources to compete near the top of the Big 12? Because if they don't have that, I don't care who you put in the head coach chair. Because unless it's Rick Pitino or Tom Izzo, it's not going to make that much of a difference.
Yeah.
That was just bad all around.
Yeah.
If they had 2 wins and crap hit the wall and it was an intolerable situation, when you fire a coach like that, you are telling people that it was no longer a tolerable situation. And guys, I always say, you got to wait 48 to 72 hours to see if something else stems from this. Tommy Lloyd has since come out. Now he's got one of Craig's sons is on his team. The other's a grad assistant. And Tommy was close to tears talking about this, that he was with them when their dad got fired. Unacceptable. You could have your next coach if that's really how you feel. But let the guy that's in the chair finish what he recruited, finish what he started, and give him an honest shot, man. That was wrong.
Yep. I also want to point out the dynamic of Utah. Utah State's crushing it. 20-plus wins already. BYU is 20-8, 11-6, and one of the surprises in college basketball. Not to surprises to people who have been paying attention like us, but I think nationwide, people are like, oh, BYU. So, then you have Utah, who considers themselves up there with them. That's not going well. So I agree with you. Do it after the season if you're going to do it, but that's kind of the pushing dynamic there in that state.
Yeah, and it's also there's a difference between what was happening with Utah and a situation with Chris Holtmann last year at Ohio State, right? It was very clear that the bottom had fallen out and Holt kind of lost that locker room. You did this. It was coming off of a loss at UCF, but that was right after they had beaten Kansas and Kansas State at home, right?
Yeah.
You were 7-9 in the Big 12, which is probably better than a lot of people thought you would be coming into this season. And I'm not a big fan of it myself as well.
Hey,
My
look,
big
if it
question
was like the Kenny Payne situation where they're like 0
Mhm.
and 19 and they got one more game, do it. This wasn't that. This wasn't that.
Yeah, and it's not like a transfer portal thing at this point because the portal doesn't even open until after the second weekend of the NCAA tournament, right? So it's not like they're knocking it ahead, and it's not like you can't make those calls anyway. You
Yeah.
know, I don't like it, man. I don't like getting rid of
The
somebody.
carousel is always spinning.
Mhm.
Yep.
You can spin it while letting your team finish the season.
Yep.
100% agree. Well said, Fanta. Listen, we got to get into why everybody's favorite team sucks, and we are going to do that here in just a second after this break. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68. Bet insurance tokens, odds boosts, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two here or there. Be sure to keep your eye out in the app for the Field of 68 specials that we'll be running throughout the season as well. So go download the BetMGM app. College basketball fans, are you ready to take your hoops game to a new level? Whether you're a seasoned bettor or just trying to win your March Madness office pool, Rhythm is here to give you the edge this season. With data-driven predictions for every single college basketball game left on the schedule, Rhythm helps you maximize your bets. And as March Madness kicks off, Rhythm's insights will help you spot those plucky Cinderellas that you know are going to shake up the NCAA tournament. But that's not all. When Selection Sunday rolls around, let Rhythm's AI-powered bracket generator do the heavy lifting for you. This is the same AI tool that performed 35% better than the average ESPN bracket last year. And here's the best part. Rhythm pairs perfectly with our Field of 68 expert analysis, giving you the 1-2 punch that you need for the rest of the college basketball season. So don't wait. Download Rhythm today and get ready to see college basketball and your betting results in a whole new light. I could not have timed that end of any better. That was the best production that we've had on the Field of 68 all season long. I could not have done that any better.
Despite flashing our faces in between commercials of Rob Doster.
Quick flash. Just a quick flash.
Yeah, quick flash.
Just a quick flash. All right. We got to get into why all the best teams in college basketball suck. And we're going to start with Auburn. And T.O., I'm going to go to you first. Why does Auburn suck? How are they going to lose? So, let me frame this. Let me frame this for the people that are going to take this the wrong way.
Yeah. Since Auburn fans love me so much anyway.
Yeah. So the way I just want to talk about how these teams can be beaten. What has to happen for Auburn to lose in the NCAA tournament or lose in the SEC tournament or find a way to not win a national championship? How do you beat them? How do you pick them apart? Where do you start? T.O., I'll go to you first on this one.
Tall task, but I think what ends up happening in the NCAA tournament, if they do lose, and they're very worthy of winning the national championship. So I want to preface what I'm about to say with this. They get into a close game, something crazy happens. Chad Baker Mazzaro does something a little crazy. It ends up in a technical. The other team gets 2 free throws. It's a 5-point swing at a crucial time of the game. That's what scares me. Outside of that, I don't have a whole lot to pick at. They can beat you in so many different ways. Tahad Pettiford can go nuts for you in a pick and roll, be that electric scoring guard. You can set up offense and have Denver Jones and Miles Kelly come off and shoot threes, and they can run away and shoot. Like, that's not a common skill. And they're big. Throw that in there. And then if you want to get points in the post, Janai Broome, just run everything through him. This is a really good Auburn team, man. And I think in the preseason, I picked them a little bit lower because I thought that JP Pegues was going to be a bigger part. I was wrong. This team defensively, size-wise, incredible, really. Incredible.
Fanta?
You have to shut down Chad Baker Mazzara and Tahad Pettiford. And by shut down, I mean you can't let them hit threes. This team has a plethora of tough shot makers. When those two are cooking with Broome, good night. They're not going to lose. Yep. Because Pettiford gives them an electricity that's just spectacular. And Baker Mazzara is one of the best tough shot makers in the country. So you're not just like, there's no world where I'm like, yeah, you're going to expose Janai Broome. Like, yes, you would like to be able to get Broome in some foul trouble. But he's such a good defender. He's one of the 15 on the Naismith Defensive Player of the Year watch list. And I think he could very well be one of the 10. And here's the thing, Denver Jones is right there with him. So, I think that this is a situation where, when I look at this Auburn team, you have to do the very best job you possibly can to make them take tough twos. Because if they're an elite perimeter shooting team and they have a top 2 player in the country. So you really have to value the ball too. Like T.O., if somebody pulls off the upset, it's because they did not make mistakes when they were on offense. Because if you make mistakes, you make an already elite offensive team better.
All right. So here's my take on how you beat Auburn. Number one, I don't think that you can allow Pettiford and Baker Mazara to get going, right? There's things that you can do to slow down some other guys, but you have to find a way to keep those guys in check, because that's where it goes from being like tough to stop them to being an absolute avalanche when those guys get into a rhythm. So you cannot let them get hot. The other thing I think you need to do is try to force Auburn to play through Janai Broome in the post. If the best offense that they can get is post touches for Janai Broome, I just don't think he's not Zach Edey on the block, right? He is best when he's kind of on the move, when it's pick and pops, when it's pick and rolls, when it's stuff like that. So I think you want to try to force them to play through Janai Broome in the post. And then the third thing I think you need to do is it's a lot easier said than done, but you got to punch them in the mouth early, because we saw it a little bit against Florida, which was kind of the only time that we've ever seen this Auburn team struggle. But they got down, and you could kind of see them get down on themselves a little bit. And I think that if you can get ahead and pull away, I think that you can kind of that's probably your best bet. Is you got to jump on them early. You got to make sure they play through Janai Broome in the post, and you cannot let Baker Mazara and Tahad Pettiford get hot, because if they get hot, then like those two guys, they're unguardable. Like if when Pettiford is going, like he's going to be hitting like step backs from 30 feet, man. When he gets into it, you cannot let him get going, because he's the guy that can completely change a college basketball game. The one team that did beat Auburn this season was the Duke Blue Devils. So, Tio, I'm going to go to you first on this one, because you're
Florida,
our resident AC. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, Florida as well. But your resident ACC network expert, a resident Duke expert. How do you beat these Blue Devils, who are coming off of a couple of really, really impressive wins, other than just hoping that Tyrese Proctor and Malik Brown never get healthy? Is that the only way you can beat them?
I think the big thing is you have to stay disciplined the entire clock defensively. That's really what it comes down to against Duke, because their talent is so overwhelming that they'll just find ways to beat you the last second of the clock, because they can be patient and still have that shot making. So if you're just disciplined throughout the course of the entire game, I mean, with your defensive positioning, off the ball, understanding where guys are looking to score, your scouting report has to be elite, because you have to be able to, one, slow the game down and wall them off. And guys, they can shoot. Let's not try to fool ourselves here. Duke can really shoot the basketball, but if they're shooting over contest, it changes the game.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. They shoot 39% from three. As long as those threes are contested, you're willing to live with them. But off the ball, you have to be such a unit defensively that they're making the extra pass and then they're shooting late in the clock contested. And that's what's happened whenever they've lost games. You look at the Kentucky game at the end, they try to drive from the top. You look at Kansas losing by 3 on a neutral, and then Clemson at Clemson. All three of those teams defensively really locked in off the ball, not just guarding the ball, but off the ball.
Phantom?
You have to take things away defensively. You have to limit the perimeter open looks. Illinois did not do that, and they paid seriously. T.O.'s absolutely correct in this statement. In November,
did you just punch your mic when you did the fist pump? I
Yes.
think you got to.
Well,
hey, who was the guy we saw in the Bahamas? The Golden Bomber. What's his name? Deontay. Was it Deontay?
Oh yeah. The Bronze Bomber.
The Bronze Bomber. You just bronze bombed your microphone there.
You're damn right I did.
Look, the health of Tyrese Proctor and Malik Brown is obviously of concern here. If they don't have, if Proctor's injury is anything serious, it changes things. But I know this might be a hot take, but I still, like, if Proctor were to miss like a first or second round, but then come back or whatever, we don't know what the situation is. I don't think it's going to be that long. I don't think
It's a bone bruise, is what they said the other night.
So the thing is, because of how much Duke changes a game physically with how they defend you, I also think it's really vital, guys. You can't get frustrated and turn into hero ball when you're on offense, or else you're going to fall right into what they want you to be in. You got to move the ball. You've got to set, as much as off the ball is important defensively, like Terrence says, for an opponent. He's right. How about being off the ball offensively? Like, you can't just stand around.
Yes.
You got to set ball screens. You have to move. You've got to run intricate sets. It's the team that's going to have the Hurley-like offense.
And you have to have a guy. You have to have a guy that can pull Malawach away to open some of those things
up. Because if Malawach is there, I think you have to attack the basket, but that means that Malawach has to be away from the basket to do it.
Bingo.
So you have to figure out a way to space. Your spacing has to be elite against them because they're so bothersome defensively. They get up in you. They extend. I mean, remember when Illinois won the tip, Rob, Saturday night?
Mm-hmm.
And it was very symbolic of the way the game was going to go. Because they didn't always do it, but they were hedging and their ball screen coverage was just fantastic. But they brought a double to Yakich, and immediately the body language of Illinois turned into scramble mode. Didn't know what to do. All frazzled, turned into one-on-one basketball. That's what Duke wants you to do. You know why? They have the best one-on-one player in the sport.
Yep.
And he's going to beat you. You also have to, you no longer can double Cooper if Isaiah Evans and Concanipple are left open because they're going to cash in. And Sion James is also capable of cashing in. He showed it. I think if Cooper scores 30, you can't let the other pieces be contributing 8 to 12 points. And so that's why I'm willing to live with Cooper Flag going to the rim, taking contact. You've got 5 fouls to use for a reason. And if he's having tough finishes, that to me is okay, as evidenced by Saturday night's blowout win. Because Cooper Flag only had 1 field goal making that win, but everybody else was humming along. If you let Duke get open threes, the game is over.
Yeah,
it's going to be over.
To me, that's the biggest thing is you got to be able to stay home. You got to run them off the 3-point line. And if you're living with Concanipple coming off of screens and hitting those little like 12-foot kind of fadeaways, right? If you're living with Sion James trying to drive and score at the rim, if you're living with Cooper Flag putting the ball on the floor and seeing help once he gets by someone, like the point you made about being connected defensively, Tio, I think that is it more than anything else. And you got to be able to, the other thing, it's not just have a 5 that can shoot it, because when they go with Malik Brown, they switch everything. You also got to have guys that can win one-on-one. You have to have somebody that can kind of create a shot on their own, because when they switch everything, you can't run shit against them. It's just not going to work when they switch everything. All right, let's move on to the Houston Cougars. Fanta, how do you beat Houston? What's the key there, and why do the Cougars suck?
They don't. But if they were to have a bad day, it's because you are matching, if not exceeding, which is hard to do, their physicality and their defensive ability. You cannot let the way that they play defense against you affect then your mentality towards the game. Too many teams get frustrated and they wear down, and it's over. It ends up being over before it gets started. Now, in the Big 12, as the year's gone on, you guys are seeing it. Some of these teams and coaches they become conditioned to playing Houston. So they know what it takes. Not every neutral court team on the other side of that knows what it takes. But what you also have to do is you've got to be within 9 points of their threes. So this year, Kelvin has his best pure shot-making team in terms of weapons. He's had one guy. This year, he really has 3. He does. Between L.J. Cryer, Milo Shuzan, and Emmanuel Sharp, At any one time, those guys can really knock down some tough shots. I think you got to find a way to contain Cryer. Like you have to make Cryer play a tough game, because if that kid's in rhythm and he's hitting step backs and off the dribble, man,
what he did against Iowa State was absurd in the second
man.
half. It was absurd.
I mean, that's really tough, man. You can't, you're not going to beat them if he's doing that. So you got to give them a taste of their own medicine. You know, you got to extend pressure, and you have to find a way to stay composed in the game, because they're going to try to rough you up. Like, that's just what they do. They want to shut you down and make it a total mud fest and just give you hell. That's what they want to do for 40 minutes. You can't fall into the trap then have that dictate how you defend them. Too many teams, T.O., they get frustrated playing Houston, and then they forget that Houston's got Cryer, Sharp, and Uzan, and that when one of those guys starts to get cooking, they've got the formula to have success. So you also got to box out. Like, you can't, if Juwan Roberts is the best front court player, we just mentioned the guards, you're in for a very long night. Tough team, but it's a mental game for me, Terrence, when you're playing Houston.
Yep.
It's right here. You got to be ready for the war.
Yeah.
Yep. Here's a microcosm. The opposing teams against Houston in conference play shoot 68% from the free throw line. What does that tell you?
Mm-hmm.
Like that, they are exhausted by the time they freaking get there. Here's my thing, and all that's right, John. If I were coaching a team, I'd be like, unless you absolutely have to, or you have an absolute drive to the lane, do not freaking dribble that ball. Do not dribble the ball. Like, you get your point guard across half court, you get it to the wing. If you put the ball on the deck, you're just going to disrupt every bit of timing that we have, because you don't pick it up quick enough to get to the next pass.
So would you simulate that in practice if you were a coach? Like, would you make
yeah.
that?
I'd be like, hey, dude, like, this is what's going to happen. We're going to put like long wings, like pool noodles. We're going to put pool noodles on our walk-ons and our scout team, and they're going to get out there and they're just going to pressure with pool noodles because they have wingspans for days and they are able to pressure. There's no way to simulate that pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Duct tape pool noodles to your hands, play some freaking defense. That's where I'm at with my walk-ons right now. Another thing, if you put the ball on the ground, they get up and they push right away. As soon as they see you put the ball on the ground, they get up and they pressure and they push. And what happens is guys have to bounce, turn their back, and then try to get back into their offensive flow. You can't dribble the basketball. Like, you have to have elite screening away from the ball. Your cutting has to be sharp, and it's not easy because Houston's so physical off the ball as well that they just push you off your spots and off your cuts. So you have to play off the ball offensively extremely tough, and you have to limit your dribbles on the wing because you just disrupt your own timing if you put the ball on the deck, and it's hard to run any offense because of that.
Yep. I think the two biggest things is kind of elaborating on your point. Like, you cannot turn the ball over. You have to get a shot on every possession against them. You cannot turn the ball over, especially live ball turnovers. And the other thing you cannot do is let them get second chance opportunities. Minimize the number of possessions that they're going to get, because part of what makes them so efficient, according to the metrics, T.O., is not that they're getting the best shots. What's your favorite thing to say? How many possessions are they scoring on? And they score on a lot of possessions because they get second chance opportunities and because they're able to create turnovers and get layups out of it. If I will live if I have my best perimeter defender forcing LJ Cryer into tough step backs. If I get beat with LJ Cryer hitting step backs when I'm cleaning the offensive glass and I'm not turning the ball over, that's one of those ones you just tip your cap to him and say, listen, man, you were great today. Same thing with Milos Uzan. When he's coming off those screens, if he's hitting those little 12-foot floaters, you make it as difficult as possible. But to me, you live with those. You live with Juwan Roberts getting to his left hand and you make those shots.
That's what scares me about Houston, though, too. Like, I was sitting there watching him play Iowa State. I was like, there's a lot of freaking step back jumpers being taken.
Yes.
A lot of them. They can hit them, but that's a hard shot to hang your hat on. LJ Cryer can make them, but like, if you just contest, it's hard.
I'll live with him. If you're going to beat us with those shots, I'm going to make them as difficult as possible and get every single one of those misses when you do miss. And to me, that's just kind of what you have to do with them. All right, Fana, I want to go to you on Florida. The Florida Gators, how do you beat them? Why do they suck? How do you make this thing? How do you end the Todd Golden season if you see him in the NCAA tournament?
Well, I think you're not just going to simply stop Walter Clayton or contain him. But what I would say is it's okay to get in an offensive game with them because they do have defensive flaws. I mean, that's why they could, I hate to use the word suck, but they gave up 88 to Georgia. And in that game, I thought they got exposed defensively big time throughout the first half and early in the second half. And you could say, well, it's late in conference play. It was a classic case of a team being a little worn out and they didn't play great. But I still have seen it before. We saw it when they went to Tennessee, and Tennessee put them in the blender. So they've had a couple of road performances where things don't always go their way. But I think you got to do a couple of things, right? Number one, you have to capitalize because of the way that they defend. You're going to get some open shots from downtown. Teams do. I mean, the other night, Silas Demery had 4 threes and 21 points, and he shot 7 of 12. If you're a backcourt's got to be totally in sync, because if you're not in sync, Walter Clayton and Elijah Martin will be, and then you're in for Florida has an open floor feel to them in general, so you got to capitalize on that, and you can't let that then dictate how you play defense. And I thought Georgia, up until about 10 minutes left to go in the game, did a pretty good job strategically, and then things came unhinged. You also can't let Florida get on the patented 12-0 run. You gotta avoid the surge. That when
the kill shots. Shout out Evan Maya.
They're a really good kill shot team. I mean, that's what they've done throughout the season. I think you make it a front court game. Like I say, let me make Chinyelu and Ha, and now Hanlon's back, but Condon, make Condon beat you. Condon was not good the other night, guys. He had a particularly bad night. Like if he's taking shots around the rim, it's okay if it means that Walter Clayton and Martin and Will Richard are not. The other thing is this: you can't let Will Richard get free. Like your off-ball defense better be really good because Will Richard's got it in him to go off. So I think you got to get the game settled to a degree. Don't let their explosiveness get to your head defensively. Stay in front of them, and make them defend you, because I still wonder at times this season about how strong of a defensive team they've been. If you look at their big wins, guys, like the win over Auburn, they had an elite offensive day. They scored 90 points. Some of their biggest wins, they've had outstanding offensive performances. Get the game settled to your liking. Play good stout defense. And again, another instance, Terrence, I'll let you take it from here, where your off-ball defense has to be really solid because Florida's got the weaponry to strike.
Let me jump in real quick, Tio, because I think I got a thought I want to add on to what Anna just said there. I think, to me, you have to eliminate the ability for them to get easy buckets, right? Don't let them get out in transition, because they love getting out in transition, especially off of a turnover, right? And especially don't let them get to the offensive glass, because I don't know. I don't have any stats on this. This is specifically just off of the eye test, but I don't know if there's a better team at going and getting an offensive rebound and spraying it out to a wide open shooter. And again, this is just anecdotal, but I'm pretty sure that Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin, Will Richard, Denzel Aberdeen, and this urban class guard, whatever his name is, I'm pretty sure that they shoot 100% on open threes that are kicked out off of offensive rebounds.
100%.
I'm pretty sure it's 100%, because it feels like every single time I see him get an offensive rebound and spray it out, they make the shot. So that I think you have to make them work, because I think if you can make them work in the half court, there's ways to beat them there. Because Fandom made a really good point. It's not like Ruben Chinyelu and I love Alex Condon, but it's not like Alex Condon and Huff and these guys are necessarily they're not Cooper Flagg and Janai Broom. They're good players. They play their nuts off. They get to the offensive glass. But I think that you can live with them trying to be the ones that beat you. So I think you have to make Florida beat you in a half-court game and don't give them second opportunities.
Yes. And yes to everything Fanta said. I think your offense has to be so good against Florida. And what I mean by that is you can't have live ball turnovers and you can't afford bad shots because what's going on now, Rob?
He said, Doster said, nah, hit the bench, little boy. I'm taking this ball, calling my own number.
Kevin B is getting a lot more FaceTime than he probably deserves.
Yes.
So
that might be the end of Kevin B for this.
Yeah, that's enough. Here's like your offense has to be really good. Like, and what I mean by that, no live ball turnovers, and you can't take bad shots because that allows them to get out. That's how they get the rhythm, right? That's how they start building those confidence and getting those runs. So I think we say so much. Well, you can't let your defense affect your offense, and you can't let your offense affect your like that. I think your offense against Florida has to be good enough to where they can't find rhythm in quick play. So you have to be able to at least slow down the break, if nothing else. That's where I think you beat Florida. But you know what the crazy part is? You play in the half court. Walter Clayton can go for 30 just because he's such a good shot creator. Like some of these other guys can have monster games. That's what makes them so dangerous. And they could be in San Antonio. There's no doubt about it.
Yep, absolutely. All right, there's 4 more I want to get to. You each have a minute. We have a minute on each one of these to be able to give your take on it. All right, so let's start with Alabama, T.O. How do you beat Alabama? Why does Alabama suck?
How do you beat Alabama? I think they are much better when Mark Sears is great. And you've seen times this season where he's struggled to really get going. So I think you got to cut the head off the snake a little bit there. And then really, if you can, it's impossible to say because they force you to play a certain way. You look at Purdue, point guard play. You look at Oregon, Jaxson Shellstat, point guard play. You look at Ole Miss, Chris Beard can slow you down. Auburn, they're big, physical. They can slow you down a little bit, even though they won scoring 94 points. Missouri blitzed them. I think that had more to do with some scheduling and some sickness on the roster, but that's neither here nor there. Like, if your point guard's good, you can beat this Alabama team, and if you're able to slow down Mark Sears, you can beat this Alabama team.
Mm-hmm. Fanta?
You got to frustrate them defensively. You got to make Mark Sears' life really hard.
Yep.
Like Auburn did. Auburn made his life hard. If you let Mark Sears get cooking and Alabama plays any defense, the game's over.
Yeah.
So the other thing is this. Same thing with Florida in this vein. Make Alabama work in the half court. When they have to work in the half court, they're a different team. On both ends. On both ends of the floor. You want to make them work when they're guarding you. And you really would like – I'm okay with Grant Nelson having the ball. I'm okay at Cliff Amore has the ball. I also would look at it from the standpoint of I don't want Phelan or Youngblood to start hitting shots and adding to the potent offense that they've got. But you can't let their open floor – and if early on they're rolling, you can't let that then – because this could happen in the tournament. You can't let that then dictate you taking shots 7 seconds into the shot clock.
Yeah.
Or 12 seconds in the shot clock. You've got to stay in it. Stay in the battle. Every damn year. In fact, I might test myself here with Rhythm or BetMGM this year. In the Sweet 16 or Elite 8, there is a game, without fail, where an explosive team is up by 12 or 14 points in the game. And we're watching and we're like, wow, they're doing their thing, probably going to win it. Alabama could be in that mode this year. And then at the end of the game, somehow, some way, they finally got picked off because the other team said, we're not going to allow this to define how the game is played.
Mm-hmm.
You have to limit Sears. He's the head of the snake. When he's not playing well, they're not the same team. And you have to make them guard you. Because if you don't get them worn out, which it's hard to wear them out, and you let Nate Oates play the game on his terms, you are going to lose, and Alabama's going to win the national championship. Auburn, watch the tape of Auburn's win over Alabama. Auburn said, we are not letting you take open threes. No way, no way, no way. And we are going to make you guard us. They did those two things, and they won the game in Tuscaloosa.
Yep. I think you can get physical with them a little bit too. Especially at the 4 spot. I think that you can attack Grant Nelson. We've seen, Mark Mitchell did it. We saw it against Auburn. I think that he can he can be got to a little bit. And as long as you're keeping them off the glass and you are the tougher, more physical team, I think that you could beat them. Speaking of tougher, more physical teams, the Johnnies, Fanta, how do you beat St. John's?
Well,
they're a nightmare.
You box the hell out.
Yeah.
You better box out, man. You have to make rebounding an absolute priority number one. So it's easy to say, well, you take away their threes. Here's the problem. They don't need threes to win. So like when they hit 8 against UConn, that's just a luxury for them. You cannot get frustrated offensively. Almost every team I've seen at some point ends up withering.
Yep.
And they just get frustrated.
It's a mental war. Like we talk about the physicality of it. Like it is a mental battle just as much as it is a physical battle, because the toll that it takes having to deal with that pressure over and over and over again every time you have to inbound the ball. There's a mental battle there that you have to find a way to win as well.
And the two things you got to do, you got to negate Zuby Ejiofor, hard to do, and you got to find a way to keep the lid off R.J. Lewis. So if R.J. Lewis is rolling, Richmond's in rhythm, Smith's in rhythm, they're cooking, man. And you can't let Davon Smith get in transition. By all means, you can't turn the ball over. Like if you have at least 12 turnovers against St. John's, good luck, man. Good luck. This team is just relentless. You have to enter the building knowing that and ready for a 12-round boxing match. Because if you're not ready for that, go home. Yes, you could by chance win if they have a horrible shooting day and you have a good shooting day. But there are teams who have done that and they've lost. You know why? They haven't been ready for this and the physicality element of the game. You have to be prepared that you're going to have some possessions because of how physical they are where you might not get the foul call that you want on the drive because of how they defend and they've earned the benefit of the doubt. You got to fight through it.
You can't call all of them. That's St. John's defensive. You can't call all of them or else it's going to be miserable.
Yep. Tio, how do you beat St. John's?
It's a war of attrition. You cannot wear out. That defensive pressure is unfreaking believable. And they can't throw it in the ocean, guys. Like they can't throw it. They're shooting 27% from 3 in conference. Can't throw it in the ocean. But if you don't turn the basketball over and you just continue to be steady with your offensive, getting yourself open, stepping guys off, it's a whole lot easier said than done. A whole lot easier said than done. And you're going to have to, not only that, can't turn the basketball over, can't allow them to get offensive rebounds. You check and check. However, it also comes down, do you have an individual playmaker that can make something happen at the end of the game? Because when they're denying everything, makes it really hard. They've lost 4 games this year by a combined total of 7 points. You got to have somebody that can make plays at the end. You look up and down their roster. Baylor, they have VJ Edgecombe, who's an athlete who can get downhill. You look at Georgia, they've got some guards that can actually just go, and they're better when they're not thinking. Creighton has some guys. They won 57-56 at Creighton. Not an easy one. Villanova, Eric Dixon. You have to have somebody that can create something at the end of the game because they're going to take everything away. And by the time the end of the game comes, you're exhausted. So you have to have an individual playmaker to make something happen in the last minute and a half.
Yep. You guys nailed it. Don't turn the ball over the glass and be ready for with. Let's go.
Uh-oh.
You glitched.
You glitched. All right, go ahead, Rob. You're back.
Tio, how do you beat Tennessee?
How
do you beat Tennessee?
Kind of the same thing as St. John's. You withstand their pressure and you make them turn it into an offensive game. That's kind of where I'm at with that. Like we've known that. These guys, they can go through offensive lulls. They really can. But just maintain their pressure, match, or some people like to say match your physicality. Other coaches get cocky and say exceed their physicality. You better be ready. You better put your chin strap on and be ready to play Tennessee because those dudes are bringing it. So I think you have to be ready for everything. It looks like it hurts to play Tennessee. That's the bottom line. But they can go through offensive lapses where they look really bad. Look at Florida, beat them by 30. 30-pieced them in Gainesville. Like they can have these offensive lapses. Can you knock down shots and find ways to get threes? Because they will overhelp at times. They will overhelp at times. So Tennessee figured that out. Kentucky's a good example of that. Like you get into the paint and you're able to spray out and knock down shots. Their offense is so bad sometimes it'll take care of itself. But like at the same time, you have to be able to withstand a lot of physical play.
Yep. You got to make some tough threes. They'll let you get threes off. They're going to be contested. They'll let you get some threes off though. The other thing is you can't let Chaz Lanier get going. Like what Tennessee does offensively is they kind of run some stuff until they figure out something that works, and then they'll run the thing that works
Just beat the
over and over and over and over and over again. And if you can keep them from finding that rhythm offensively, then that's how you beat them. You cannot let them get into that one set that they can just go to over and over and over and over again.
But you know what? Who runs the set? It's Kai Ziegler.
Mm-hmm.
So if you let Ziegler get into a rhythm, you're in for a long day. Like, yes, limiting Lanier is important, but if you over-focus on Lanier, they still have other guys that can get going. Jemai Mashack can score for them. He won the game at Illinois. You have to be able to find a way to keep Ziegler from having his fingerprints all over the game. And similar to playing a Houston or a St. John's, it's psychological, man. So much of this is psychological. You have to be ready for what they're going to bring to the table defensively. If it's like T.O. said, if you put the ball on the floor, you better protect it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get into this trap of like trying to do everything perfectly, and then you're going to need an individual. Like as Tennessee wins the game with Lanier, like they won. Now, Connect was better. But in the same vein of how they won last year, when they're playing their best, they win that game by running the same stuff over and over and over again and exposing you defensively. But I think the thing is, like, you also, when they're humming, right? When they are playing really well offensively, you have to find an answer to that submissive behavior of like, we're gonna just beat you the hell down. Make an adjustment, man. Like if you keep getting beat on this screen, do something a little bit different. Mm-hmm. If you have to throw a blizzard zone at them, then throw something at them. But like don't get sent packing by them doing the same thing over and over and over again. You got to be willing to adapt when you're playing Tennessee, because if you don't adapt or adjust within the game on either side of the basketball, you're going to be in for a long one. And I think I think more than anything, like whenever I watch somebody play Tennessee, I think to myself, is the other team making Tennessee work as hard when they're defending as they should be?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you got to do, man. You got to make that team work. You got to give them a taste of their own medicine. When Tennessee loses, sometimes they've lost where they have like 48 points, 52 points. It's because somebody gave them a taste of their own medicine. You got to know who you're playing. Know who you're fighting against. Yep.
I tend to agree. All right, last thing, real quick. You got 30 seconds on this, Fanta. We just mentioned 7 teams right there. Who is your you got to pick someone that's not one of those 7 to win a national championship this year. Who would it be? I know who I'm going with. You want me to go first, guys?
Go ahead.
How about the Missouri Tigers? Is that crazy?
Yeah, that's great. They're very good. I don't think they win a national championship. They're very good.
I think it's going to be either Duke or Auburn here, but I like the Missouri Tigers, man. They got some guys that can make shots. They got a lot of talent, and they mix things up defensively, and they're going to be a tough scout.
I'm ready.
Go ahead. What do you got, T.O.?
We're going up to the cold weather. We're going to Wisconsin. We're going Greg Gard. We're going John Tonje.
No.
We're going Big Ten. To bring it back, break the drought. We're going Big Ten. That's where we're going. John Tonje is awesome. John Blackwell has been incredible. Klesmit's like willing to play this role of being that third guard. They've got Stephen Crop. They're for real. Wisconsin is for real, and they get to the freaking free throw line, and they could shoot the cover off the ball, and he's let them go offensively in the early part of possessions, which has not been the case at Wisconsin over the last X amount of years. I'm telling you, those guys are good.
Yeah, I agree too. I really like the Badgers. Fanta, who you got? Give me one.
They have lost 2 or 3, but I'm not giving up on them. I'm not giving up on Texas Tech. They still beat Houston on Houston's home floor. They still have a ton of length and versatility. And Grant McCaslin, I think he's very good at identifying who to ride. They obviously need to get healthy. But JT Toppin is tremendous, and Darion Williams and Chance McMillan can both get cooking as well. I still like that team too much to just write them off. And the other one, I'm sorry, I'm gonna throw in a bonus one. I still, guys. Yep, Wreckham Tech. I love Tech. I really do. I still love this team. I think they're going to be in the second weekend. And if I had to go with one other, I just think that Penny Hardaway's got it coming here.
Ooh.
I think that Haggerty and Hunter, and just because the league they're in, I know that people kind of turn the other way. That team's been a steady top 20 team all year long. And how is Memphis in close games? You want to be in a close game with that team? Do you want to be in a close game with that team? Because you're asking for it. Because they have individuals who can beat your defense, and they defend. And they rebound with Dane Danger. I like the talent. Penny, if he beats FAU 2 years ago, woulda, shoulda, coulda, who knows what happens? Those Tigers are still feisty.
Yeah, and they have the size to compete with everybody. Like, not just Musa Cisse's there. He comes in, he erases stuff around the rim. They pass the eye test. They pass the eye test. But if you can slow down PJ Haggerty, not an easy task. But like, if you can a little bit, you can beat them. But I agree with that call.
Yeah, I like that too. All right, listen, this has been fun. Another thrilling episode of the DTF podcast for Terrence Oglesby, for Johnny Fanta.
March.
See you guys again next time we see you.